Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman, here as always with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, there's no time for power pauses. We have breaking news. I thought certainly you would respect the process enough to just be like, Tom, how's it going? Just blast right through it because we have breaking, exciting news, Tony. Let the people know about it and do it quickly. No pauses.
Tom, I don't like to be told what to do, but I will do it because, again, as you said, this is breaking news and it is very important. Five-star wide receiver Carnell Tate of the IMG Academy has announced his commitment to Ohio State. So that is the big news. A very talented receiver, 6'2", 185 pounds, number 3 receiver in the class, number 28 player overall in the 24/7 composite. As I said, IMG down in Bradenton, Florida. However, he is a Chicago native, so he's a Midwestern guy, which is really what's the most important part about this. Is he's Midwestern like the rest of us. Not you, Tom. You are an East Coaster, and no matter how long you will be in the Midwest, you will still remain an East Coaster until, Tom, you say you are standing in line.
That's probably not going to happen. Again, let's try and stay on task here. Number 3 wide receiver in the 247 composite. In case you're wondering, number 2 is Brandon Innes, who was on a visit over the weekend, and someone else we may have an emergency podcast about at some point in the coming days or weeks. Number 1, the only other guy ahead of him is Zachariah Branch, who is committed to USC. He is the younger brother of Zion Branch, who was a safety out of Bishop Gorman last year, who committed to, he was very seriously looking at Ohio State and ended up going to USC. Now his brother Zachariah is following him and following in his footsteps. Or Tony, Brian Hartline might have the 3 top wide receivers potentially in this year's class. Instead, he has to settle for only 2 of the 3, but also several guys ranked lower than that who may end up being, Bryson Rogers is, I guess, technically the lowest ranked of the 4 guys that they're looking to potentially land right now. And every single, you can't find Bryson Rogers' name online right now without someone saying like criminally underranked, will soon be another, you could very well have 4 top 50 overall players at one position group, all in one class. That's not bad.
It is not bad. And the 4th wide receiver there that could be eventually a Buckeye is Noah Rogers out of Knowlesville in North Carolina. And so that's just that could be another huge guy. But Tom, while we are criticizing Brian Hartline, let's just go ahead and mention Tate, if he signs and remains a 5-star, this will only be the 5th 5-star receiver that Brian Hartline has signed in his 5 classes. I would like to see an average of like 1.5 instead of just 1. Just that way you can keep things going. Right now he's in line with what Ryan Day's average at quarterback. I mean, is that good? I guess so. But what Carnell Tate does is he's a big receiver. He's big. He's strong. He's not Marvin Harrison, but in terms of size, like Marvin Harrison, just you look at him and that's a big receiver. Carnell Tate is, I would compare him, and I have compared him to Michael Thomas in terms of size, in terms of some of the skill set that you see. The first time, Tom, I saw him last year in a game, I was very impressed. However, it was against Bishop Sycamore. He was a man amongst boys, but also because it was Bishop Sycamore, he was a man amongst men. I mean, he was playing against some 20-year-olds in there, I'm sure, but he more than held his own, and a very effective, like a red zone guy. Also, like he caught a pass, just a quick out from the slot. They caught it at the 5-yard line and like dragged 5 guys in, 5 Bishop Sycamore players into the end zone and scored, and was really just a bully in that game. But that's a glimpse of what he can do. He's I don't know if he's an X or if he's a Z, probably an X. Like I said, he compares favorably to me to Michael Thomas. So if you've got an opportunity to go get one of those guys, Tom, you go do it.
Yeah, anytime you can get someone who you're going to be comping, credibly comping to Michael Thomas, who had a, not the most insane statistical Ohio State career, but has gone on to have a completely insane NFL career, and who had definitely had a very good Ohio State career. yeah, you're going to take that. What's interesting to me about this is all of these guys, this is just like Brian Hartline has a type. Like all these guys are between 6 foot tall, listed, at least they're listed heights. I've not stood next to all of them yet, but, listed between 6 foot tall and 6'2", and like 175 and 190 pounds. These guys all fit kind of right in that same mold. And, he has gotten away from they earlier, and this was even kind of end of the Zach Smith era, you'd get the taller guys, the Jalen Harrises, the Elijah Gardners, where it's like, this guy is clearly just an X. Like, he is just the big dude who's going to be going up and getting the ball in the red zone. And then you had the little guys. You had the Mookie Coopers and the Jalen Gills and the little slot guys who were, 5'9", 5'10", and like, very clearly this guy's going to be an H. They've kind of gotten away from that, where it's just like, now they'll take some 5'11" guys and they'll take some 6'3" guys, but it's just, he has kind of found this, this kind of band in terms of height and weight, where these guys can all kind of fit in each of the 3 receiver positions. And there's not necessarily, I don't look at any of them and go, this guy, the only thing this guy is going to play is X, or the only thing this guy is going to play is Z or H. You have got, they'll end up in one of those spots, but you can move them around. And, that's a tremendous advantage to have, that kind of flexibility at the receiver position. Because you look at this year's Ohio State receivers, you've got Jackson Smith-Njigba, who's at the H. You got Marvin Harrison, who's at the X. You've got Julian Fleming, who's, probably at the Z. And then you've got Emeka Egbuka. Well, Emeka Egbuka, he's great, but he's also an H. So the fact that you could move Jackson Smith-Njigba out, or you could move Emeka Egbuka out to one of the outside receiver positions, that means if those are your 3 best guys, great. You have flexibility. You're not just pigeonholed into one of those 3 spots. So that's, you look at the guys that Hartline is recruiting and the results he's getting with them. It's like, yeah, I think this system is working just fine. And just seems like the assembly line just kind of keeps going for him.
Well, and you also see that on defense with the pigeonholing. Like, Ohio State had an opportunity to land one of the top middle linebackers in the nation last year, but they only saw him as a middle linebacker. And really, that old style of middle linebacker is going out in some defenses, and especially in an Ohio State 4-2-5, where you need your 2 inside linebackers to be able to do more and to run and to be able to cover. So you can't just have like this run plugger anymore. And just like you just not necessarily like, we need our 6'4.5", 215-pound X. We're missing him. It's like, no, Ohio State's not missing him. Garrett Wilson did just fine at that position at 6 foot, 185, 190 pounds. Like, he plays bigger than most 6'5" guys anyway. And so you certainly want these guys that are versatile. And like I said, Carnell Tate can play in a number of positions. The touchdown catch that I was telling you about from the 5-yard line, like I said, he was in the slot. And Ohio State plays a lot of guys. They move guys around. They'll have motion. They have tight ends that go outside and then put the receiver in the slot automatically. So anytime you can get the versatile guys and you can put them anywhere, it makes everybody else better too, because then you're just able to move guys around and get more guys involved. And in the age of the transfer portal, getting more guys involved is a very good thing. So, Tom, this is the 11th commitment in the class, 7 on offense for the Buckeyes, 4 on defense. They now have 3 top 50 guys, or actually 2 with Carnell Tate and Luke Hamilton. Tom, right?
Luke Montgomery, perhaps?
Luke Montgomery. See, there's a Luke Hamilton. There's a Hamilton.
Yes, he's a 2023 offensive lineman. Luke Montgomery is a 2022.
Season.
Yes. The camp season has poisoned Tony's brain. Yes.
And I even went and we saw Ryan Montgomery, the younger brother of Luke Montgomery, throw a quarterback. But at least I knew I was giving you the wrong number, the wrong name, Tom. I was waiting for you to correct me, as you love to do. But there have been some questions about Ryan Day's recruiting offensively versus defensively. So I went and dug up some numbers, Tom. With the 2 top 50 guys in the class now in Montgomery and Tate, Day has had commitments or signed 20 top 50 guys. 14 of those guys are on offense. Only 6 have been on defense, and 4 of those guys See if you know what the coincidence here is. Sonny Styles, C.J. Hicks, Gabe Powers, and Zach Harrison. 4 of those 6.
They are all in-state prospects, Tony.
Yes. So only 2 out-of-state top 50 guys that Ohio State Ryan Day has landed since 2019. And, you know, the 2019 class is not entirely his, but he was the head coach for it. So, you know, he was there for it. So it's, I think they've started to address it, but again, you're addressing with Ohio kids. So it's something that I think shouldn't be ignored. And yes, all of these receivers and quarterbacks are great. You probably want to see some more offensive linemen, and you definitely want to see some more guys on defense in that top 50.
And, you know, when you think about it, it makes sense that their recruiting on offense has been better than the recruiting on defense. I mean, Day is an offensive-minded coach, a head coach, so he is going to be more directly involved more often than not with the offensive recruits. I mean, he's going to be involved with every quarterback recruit and probably pretty much every wide receiver recruit. And, you know, you get the head coach involved on the other side of the ball when you need to, when it's like, hey, this is a really big thing. Really big player, we've got to land. So he's going to be more involved in the offensive side of the ball than the defensive side of the ball. And the offensive side of the ball has been the more appealing side of the ball for Ohio State the last couple of years. When you look at Ohio State right now is the high-flying passing attack that's constantly breaking records, constantly sending guys to the first round of the draft. The offense has carried this team in the last few years. The defense has not been as good. And there's kind of a little bit of a circular thing going here where the defensive recruiting hasn't been quite as good, which led to the defenses not being quite as good, which led to the defensive coaching staff being fired, which probably then led to the defensive recruiting not being quite as good because they pretty much just completely overturned the entire defensive staff outside of Larry Johnson after last season. So you had all those existing relationships that then you're starting over from scratch. So you've got a cornerback like A.J. Harris, who had a great relationship with Kerry Combs. And then Kerry Combs leaves. And then you've got essentially an all-new coaching staff on defense that has to kind of start from square one in some ways. And now A.J. Harris committed and is now going to Georgia instead of Ohio State. And he's a 5-star corner. So, and he is an out-of-state 5-star corner. You need, when you don't have everything going great for you on a certain side of the ball, and you're overturning your whole coaching staff, it's hard to bring those out-of-state guys in. So, it's not great. They have to, it's an issue they have to solve. It's not necessarily a crisis yet by any means, but it's, it's something they've got to get figured out. And, you look at the 2023 recruiting class right now, and I'm just going to read down the positions: offensive line, corner, tight end, safety, offensive line, safety, running back, offensive line, wide receiver, defensive line. They have one defensive lineman committed, and that's Will Smith, who is the lowest ranked player right now. We've seen him at camp this month quite a bit, and he seems like he's probably due to shoot up the rankings a little bit. But there are a bunch of defensive linemen. I don't really necessarily worry about defensive line recruiting at any point. That's just kind of like, yeah, Larry Johnson will figure it out. And they're in on a bunch of really good linebackers. And they brought in a couple really good corners a couple of years ago. And, they've got guys who they brought in this year who I think they're reasonably high on as well. But there's still work to be done. Again, I don't think it's a crisis, and I think this is a recruiting class that's going to end up a top 5 recruiting class again, and possibly better than that. But there's still work to be done with some of these guys. Let's see where this class, September 1st. Let's see where this class stands, because you're going to end up probably having, you might have all 4 wide receivers in the class at that point. You might have a quarterback in the class at that point. And then, if you can bring in a couple of those defensive players, they're in on 3 linebackers who they're very high on. And, you bring in a couple a defensive lineman, and then really then at that point, it's like, okay, you got to find some tackles. You got to, make sure you get your a corner or two to kind of fill out that class. But based on how things I think are trending right now, this is shaping up to be, exactly an Ohio State recruiting class. Another top 5, top 3 kind of Ohio State recruiting class, which is, that'll do you just fine.
Yeah, and you mentioned defensive line, Mateo Uiagalelei taking his visits, but the Buckeyes seem to be the favorite at this point. There's certainly some defensive backs that are in the mix as well, top 100 guys. Just doing some quick math, Tom, including these the 2023 class, that is 35 top 100 players committed or signed, and 13 of them are on defense. So that's, and there are, Tom, 11 players play at a time on defense and 11 players play at a time on offense. So you would like these things to somewhat even out, but it hasn't. Now, I will say in 2022, 7 top 100 guys, 4 on defense, 3 on offense. So again, those are some Ohioans, but still, like, they're not. Ohio State certainly isn't ignoring defense. That 2021 class, 14 top 100 guys, 8 on offense, 6 on defense. So it feels like the ship is being righted a little bit, as Brian Day is no longer just, well, he's just some offensive guy. It's like, no, he's a well-rounded head coach and is now targeting a new kind of defense that will be aggressive and you would think productive and become similar to the way offensive recruits want to play in the system. The plan is for defensive recruits to see this defense this year and want to play in Ohio State's defensive system.
I think it would be very, very reasonable to expect the defense to trend in a very good direction this year compared to where they were last year and be a little bit more cohesive, a little bit better in terms of results, which then is going to put you much further up in the polls than you were last year. And they finished, 4th or 5th in the polls last year. You know, if the defense is better this year, they're going to the college football playoff. They're probably going to the national championship game, and then it's, okay, can you beat Alabama or can you not? And, you know, we'll see where they end up at that point. But, you know, yeah, it seems like everything's trending the right direction there. And, you know, even on defense, I mean, you mentioned Mateo Uyangalele, who is the number 21 overall player, 5-star in the 247 composite. They're also in pretty decent shape, it sounds like, or in certainly in the running at the very least, for 5-star safety Caleb Downs. He's the number 11 overall player in the country. Both of those guys out-of-state players. So, you know, if you're adding 2 more 5-stars and they are both out-of-state players, then okay, now we've, you know, you have changed you've changed that statistic in a pretty meaningful way. And, you know, that could happen in the next 2 months, that you could add both of those guys potentially. So, yeah, it's like I said, I think you're not at a point of concern, but it's like, this is one of these things you gotta keep an eye on it. But it seems like this could be potentially turning in a relatively short order.
Yeah, and it only takes one class like 2017 to skew all the numbers back to where you want them, where you've got a Baron Browning and Jeff Okuda and Sean Wade, and as Chase Young part of that class as well. Like, just a number of freakish out-of-state guys. Time to get back on Carnell Tate as we wrap up. So he is now the 15th wide receiver signed or committed to Brian Hartline since Brian Hartline took over. And that is now, he is the 12th top 100 player of those 15 wide receivers. Caleb Burton, Kojo Antwi, and current commit Bryson Rogers, not top 100 players, even though, Tom, when Caleb Burton committed to Ohio State, he was the number 9 player in the nation. When Kojo Antwi committed to Ohio State, he was the number 73 player in the nation. Bryson Rogers now sitting at number 270 overall, just like a stick in the mud. But as you said, everybody is talking about how he is going to get his bump up after really playing well in some 7-on-7s. And Tom, my comp for him, as we were talking about this potential 2023 recruiting class, he's got a lot of Jackson Smith and Jigba to me. He's a really solid route runner, can play in the slot, can play outside, just a smooth guy. And remember, I believe when Jackson Smith committed to Ohio State, he was the number 53 or number 57 wide receiver overall. So probably in that same 270 to 300 range, something like that.
You know, I think at this point you look at what Brian Hartline's track record is, and it's easy to just kind of like hand wave it as the Buckeye bump or the Bama bump or whatever. But then when you have a guy like Jackson Smith and Jigba, who they identified so early, got in on so early, and then came and immediately made an impact at Ohio State. It's like, okay, so at some point this is not just like a courtesy bump, like this is just what this guy is. And, you know, it feels like the way people talk about Bryson Rogers, I have not seen Bryson Rogers in person on the field. I've seen him in person on recruiting visits, but not actually on the field. So I'm going to leave the scouting to the scouts on that point, but the consensus among pretty much everyone is this guy is like criminally underrated. So I would expect him to end up much higher up. I just pulled up Caleb Burton's stats from high school just to see if there was a reason. He missed his junior season. He was he played at Lake Travis High School, which is big boy Texas high school football. Averaged 19.0, 18.1, and 17.2 yards per catch in his 3 seasons that he played, freshman, sophomore, and senior. His senior season, 49 catches, 845 yards, 15 touchdowns. And you got to figure he's getting a good bit of attention as a 5-star player. You know, the opposing defensive coordinators are going to find where he is. And his numbers didn't go up, but they didn't really go down either. And you're playing pretty good competition there. So, you know, we'll see. We'll see. He will get a chance to really show what he can do at the college level now, coming up this fall to a certain degree. And then really that's more of a 2023 conversation because Tony, Ohio State has a bunch of wide receivers on the roster, and they're all pretty good.
For now, some are going to eventually go to the NFL, and then they'll need more. And guess what? They'll have more. And it's fun to watch just to see them go and do what they're able to do, and then get to see those players play for 3 years, no more. That's it, just 3 years, and then you're out the door. But or they transfer like Jamison Williams. Either way, as long as they all end up happy, that's all you can ask for. So Carnell Tate now committed to Ohio State over suitors like Tennessee and basically just Tennessee. I think it was just Ohio State and Tennessee. The rest of the nation obviously wanted in there as well. And like I said, Midwestern kid, so had offers from everywhere. And Ohio State wins out. Happy to do so. This one was, we thought it was over a year ago. It had been in chalk for a while. And then you got the drama with the NIL stuff. But Tom, here we are. It's over. It's done with. Do you expect anything to change?
Anything to change with him between now and signing day? I mean,
yes.
I can't really predict that. I mean, it seems like he's comfortable there now. So, but I mean, like you said, a year ago we were talking about him as potentially like could be the next guy to commit, and he set a commitment date of August or October 8th or something like that, October 6th last year. And at that point, it was an Ohio State Notre Dame battle, and then it went from an Ohio State Notre Dame battle to an Ohio State Tennessee battle. And the conversation around him changed a little bit, and it was now he's drifting away, and now it looks like he's going to Tennessee, and then he came back, and yeah, but our guys Alex and Bill and Mark were pretty confident that he has been if it's Ohio State and it's Ohio State and Notre Dame and it's Ohio State and Tennessee and the Ohio State and part is consistent throughout. You kind of keep your keep your pick on Ohio State as long as it's always Ohio State and you keep your pick on Ohio State, and those guys had it right all along, turns out. So yeah, he's you never know at this point with recruiting until the ink is dry on the paper, but it seems like he has explored his options. It's not he has been to Tennessee, he has been to Notre Dame, he knows what else is out there, and he's picked Ohio State. So I think at this point Brian Hartline has closed the deal and just kind of maintained status quo through early signing day. Yeah,
Tom, I will go one step further. You never know until they show up, and then you only know for a year or 4 months. Yeah, it just depends on how early they arrive. But obviously, a huge get for Ohio State, one they've been working for a long time, and have certainly spent a lot of time to make happen. So that should give you an idea of the kind of player that they have just landed. So, Tom, anything else before we go?
I think we're good, and who knows, we may end up doing another one of these emergency podcasts at some point in the next couple weeks if there's more emergency recruiting news to come.
Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if there's more than one. So just stay tuned. Probably going to be a busy summer and a lot to talk about. So thank you all for joining us as always. Don't forget to check out Tom on the Morning Scoop. Check out Alex Gleitman around the Oval. Check out Mark Givler and Bill Green on Gives in a Bank. And you can find Kevin Noon at the Big Meat Kickoff. He sits there on YouTube and talks to people and then takes questions and talks Buckeye football and anything else that comes out of your mouth to his ears. So thank you all for tuning in. Check out those shows as well, and we will talk to you guys later.